So if we're here to understand how frequency works and why it's so important, then we need to understand the underlying architecture that creates frequency from a more universal perspective. And we need to understand how the whole universe, from a quantum physics point of view, is vibration and frequency and energy. And in particular, what role geometry plays in the sequence of events that ends up creating matter. And there is an architecture that the universe follows to create that matter, and we like to call it or refer to it as frequency architecture. But it's more the universal frequency architecture, not just the human frequency architecture, but a much bigger view of the architecture of sort of frequency and vibration and energy and resonance in and of itself. So let's dive in and have a quick look at this. Now, I like to think that out in the universe somewhere, the universe is going to create this sort of wobble, what I call a wobble, maybe a bump, maybe a nudge. And in some circles, there is a sort of field of research that's playing out right now that suggests that, hey, maybe this is consciousness, and that maybe the whole universe is made up of consciousness, maybe even a single particle of consciousness. That's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down, but we're not going to in this moment. But let's imagine that the universe is this beautiful, amazing consciousness, and in its innate wisdom or in its innate desire, it creates a wobble in the fabric of space-time. So this is creating a wobble in what we might think of as the fabric of space and time. That fabric, when it starts to move, creates almost this wave-like expression. And that wave-like expression that starts to go out in the universe looks very much like a vibration that goes out into the universe. That vibration, which we can understand just through the mechanics of frequency and how frequencies are created, in that frequencies are waves that propagate out into the environment. And as pressure waves, for example, we hear the frequency, which we then translate into sound. We hear it with our ears. That pressure wave is just a vibration in a medium, which here in our atmosphere and oxygen creates a frequency. Whereas in the universe, it's still going to create a sort of a frequency that's going to go out and propagate throughout the universe. But we may not obviously be able to hear it because in the vacuum of space, there's nothing to push against, theoretically. Another rabbit hole we could go down, but we're not going to go down right now. So what we see happening here is that consciousness is then creating this vibration, which is then creating a frequency. Now, that frequency then steps into a really important shaping or architecture of space and time itself. And it ends up what we might think of as creating geometry. In this case, we're looking at a octahedron, but all forms, all sorts of geometry. So the frequency is then going to sort of bump and create this geometry, which really is the start of form itself. And I like to think of this as almost this sort of blueprint that the next step can follow, which is subatomic particles. So the movement from this sort of universal experience of consciousness into matter itself is through the formation of geometry, which is created out of frequency itself. And we understand that because whenever you play a frequency, either through a plate with sand on top of it, you create these incredible geometric cymatic patterns. And we know each frequency has a different pattern associated with it. If we were to create a three-dimensional version of that, we would then see it as a geometry. And we must always remember that any frequency that we hear, whether it's the voice, whether it's songs, music, sound, a musical instrument, whatever it might be, is creating a three-dimensional, almost orb or geometry within a sphere. Um, Nothing is sort of flat, nothing sort of comes out in two dimensions. It's always three dimensions or more that is formed. Again, even as I speak right now, your hearing, your five senses are picking up the sound of my voice, then translating those frequencies of the sound of my voice into language. But at a more quantum type level, what's happening with every frequency that I'm sharing is these little bubbles of geometric patterns that go out into the world. And so not only are we picking it up from a hearing point of view, which is where a majority of our focus has been entrained into us, the body's also picking it up as a geometric pattern, and it's reading that geometric pattern. As it's reading that geometric pattern, it's then able to be influenced either positively or negatively. And it's going to influence atomic, subatomic particles, and then obviously it's going to influence the human form or matter itself. It's going to have an influence on that. It's another reason why words are so important, and how negative words can affect us at an even deeper level. Because what you've got to understand is that harmonic frequencies create stable geometries. Disharmonic frequencies create destabilized geometries. If we just look at things like the platonic solids, the five platonic solids, we can see that there are five sort of platonic solids, and when they are stable, they remain beautiful five platonic solids. When they're destabilized, they become the 13 Archimedean solids, where the geometries sort of merge together and create these weird, unusual shapes. That's just a silly little example of stable versus unstable geometries. But the unstable geometries are going to affect matter itself. It's possibly why not only negative thinking has an effect on the body, but maybe the geometry from the negative thinking actually bumps the atomic particles themselves, which start destabilizing, creating disharmonic patterns, disharmonic geometries, which then lead to the body not being formed in the way it needs to be healthy and vital and vibrant and all of those sort of things. So illness itself and disease goes a lot deeper than just the biomechanical aspects of it, deeper than the mental and emotional aspects of it. And if we start to consider things like, okay, everything is frequency, therefore everything's creating a geometry, therefore subatomic and atomic particles are being informed by the blueprint of geometry. And if it's a destabilized or disharmonic geometry, then that blueprint is informing matter itself at a fundamental quantum level to potentially form in a discombobulated, destabilized state, which can then obviously lead to illness, disease. So from a frequency point of view, when we can influence matter itself by creating harmonic frequency sets or harmonic frequency remedies that then create stable, beautiful geometries, which then inform the blueprint, as a blueprint to subatomic and atomic particles, then everything can be shifted and moved and changed, and from an illness or a disease state, the body can be returned into a harmonic, stable, and healthy, vibrant, vital self. And it helps just to understand frequencies at this level to see how these things are playing out. And it allows us to tune in, to sense, to see what's going on so that we can then create these beautiful frequency recipes that help bring people back into a more stable, harmonic state and influence, the quantum level of, or potentially influence the quantum level of existence. Um, and yeah, and in turn, we're helping remind the body what frequency it should be in. We're helping to remind the system itself, well, the whole body itself, the systems that make up the body, the physical, mental, emotional systems. We're influencing or can influence the organs, the cells, and even further down to the parts that make up all of those things. And I think that's the beauty of frequency as a tool to support someone to shift into a more well state, supporting ourselves, supporting our clients, supporting the world. So, if you'd like to find out more, then join us at our next Frequency Advantage live workshop coming up really, really soon. We'll put the link below for you to find out more and yeah, maybe join us at the next event coming up really, really soon. All right, in the meantime, stay stable, stay harmonic, and yeah, just think about all that beautiful, yummy geometry that you're creating with every frequency that you share with the world. And I'll see you real soon. Ciao.